Real Fake Pizza channel. In today's episode, we're going to make our first recipe using the pizza app. If you want to learn more about the app and the basics of pizza baking, be sure to check out the first video. We'll be making 3 dough balls, each weighing 215 grams. This size works best for my oven. We're using a moderate 62% hydration, 3% salt, and a 24-hour fermentation at room temperature. I'm using a medium-strength flour, Caputo Pizzeria flour with 12.5% protein, along with active dry yeast from the same brand. But don't worry, you can achieve very similar results with any finely milled white flour that has around 12% protein content, and any active dry yeast will do. All right, after weighing out your ingredients, combine the flour, water, and yeast and start mixing slowly. Make sure to add the salt at the end. It helps the flour hydrate and builds a stronger gluten structure. If you prefer to use fresh yeast, just select compressed yeast in the app, and it will calculate the required amount for you. Measuring it out correctly is important, so using a cheap spice scale works best. Larger scales don't provide the precision needed for fine measurements, and having a small scale comes in handy in the kitchen from time to time anyway. Yeast activates around 23 degrees Celsius, so I prefer to start with refrigerated ingredients and mix until the dough reaches that temperature. Mixing creates friction, which heats the dough faster than you might expect. For me, it took about 8 minutes with a hand mixer. Once the dough is smooth and almost finished, add the salt and continue mixing. Adding olive oil is optional, but it helps improve the color and crispiness of the crust. As you can see, the dough is at the right temperature, smooth, strong, and bounces back when you poke it. Now cover it and let it rest for 20 minutes. Controlling the temperature is key to achieving consistent results. Even a steak probe will work. When the 20 minutes are up, take the dough out of the bowl and place it on the counter. Stretch it out as wide as you can without tearing it by using your hands. Once it's stretched, fold it together and form a ball. This process exercises the dough and helps create a strong and flexible structure. You can repeat this process 2 to 3 times, but I find it unnecessary because the dough looks nice and strong. After forming the ball, the bulk fermentation starts, which can take anywhere from 2 to 10 hours. I'm using 4 hours today, but it's up to your schedule or time window. When the time is up, start measuring out your dough balls. As you can see, the dough has risen nicely. Oil up your hands a bit to avoid the dough sticking to them. It's a pretty straightforward process. We aimed to get 215-gram balls and pretty much nailed it at 213 grams. From the measured out dough, form balls by flattening each piece a bit and then folding it into itself a couple of times, as I'm doing here. There are many different techniques, but this is the simplest for me. Once you have folded the dough several times, turn it seam side down. To seal the folds, drag the dough ball across the counter while cupping it with your hands in a V shape. This helps create smooth and round balls. For the perfect seal, you can pick them up and close the bottom of the folds with a twisting motion. Then oil them up a little to prevent drying out. Cover them and let them rest for a day. Okay, so we followed the pizza app and 24 hours have passed since mixing the dough. Now it's time to bake the pizzas. For stretching, I use a mix of semolina and flour, but you can use just flour or semolina if you prefer. The balls have puffed up nicely. Now sprinkle the first one around with semolina and start to separate it from the pan using a spatula. After loosening it, slide the spatula underneath in one smooth motion and transfer it to the semolina with the bottom facing up. Gently shape it back into a round form by pushing the edges. Once you have the desired shape, turn it back over to its original side. Now start flattening it out by pushing the air from the middle outwards to create a nice, airy crust. Then pick it up and slap the dough a couple of times. This helps get rid of the excess semolina while stretching the dough. You can watch this in more detail in Gazen's video. After a few slaps, place it on the peel and adjust the shape by pinching the edges. Then, scoop a generous amount of thick tomato sauce into the middle and work it around in a circular motion. If you apply too little sauce, the dough will puff up during baking, so don't be shy with it, but try to keep the crust free from sauce. Now it's time for some Parmesan for flavor. Then place fresh basil leaves all around and top it with sliced mozzarella cheese, making sure not to place the slices too close together. The melted cheese should form little islands, sticking to authenticity. Then grab some olive oil and give it a little pour all around. Before putting it in the oven, it's time to stretch the dough out to its final form. Pinch it from underneath and gently stretch it with your fingers. On max settings, my oven usually burns the bottom of the dough, so I launch the pizzas at a 4.5 setting, around 350 degrees Celsius. The pizzas are ready in 3 to 4 minutes. Almost all ovens cook unevenly, so you'll need to turn the pizza from time to time. To keep the hot air in, I usually twist the stone using its holders and only open the oven once to give the pizza a full 180-degree turn before it's ready. Monitor the bottom as well by lifting it slightly with the peel. The last minute is critical, so keep an eye on the crust and twist the pizza if needed. And there we have it, our first margherita pizza in under 4 minutes. Listen to that crunch. Not bad for a cheap pizza oven, right? Crispy on the outside, but soft and airy on the inside, and even the bottom looks just right. I think this is just the right place to wrap up today's video. In the upcoming episodes, I'll dive deeper into each step, from mixing and shaping the dough to achieving the perfect bake. If you have any questions or want to share your thoughts, feel free to drop a comment below. I'd love to hear how your pizza turns out and what you'd like to see next. So, if you want to sharpen your skills or learn more about the process, stay tuned. See you in the next video.